So you walk into a bookstore, you go to the classics section, you know exactly what you're doing. Some books that you want to get that you've heard about for years that you haven't read, and you're so excited. So you go and you find these classics, you pick them up, you buy them, you bring them home, and then something happens. And days pass, weeks pass, years pass, and those books are still on your shelf, unopened. You never had a chance to read them. Many of us have a classics bookshelf full of books we feel we should read. We buy them with the best of intentions. We hear recommendations and we think, that is a great book. I'd love to read it. But somehow they remain half finished or unopened. Today I want to talk about five of the most famous classics that many people buy, but surprisingly few people actually finish, and why they're actually worth reading. So, this is not a new phenomenon. This is something that has been going on for a long time. Classic book enthusiasts and newcomers to the reading trade alike have found the same experience. There are classics that are recommended. We feel intimidated by them, and yet we want to read them. Maybe they're school assignments that kind of have killed our curiosity, but we've heard of them, we know that they're classics, and we just don't have that motivation anymore. Or maybe we assume that they're a lot harder than our ability warrants, and we're like, I don't know if I'll be able to read that book. That book is just a challenge. But the truth is, classics became classics for a reason, and every one of them has a type of reader that should read it. And so for a lot of people, these kind of classics, the five I'm going to talk about today, I think most people are not reading these books for reasons that have very little to do with the books themselves and more to do with the culture we have created surrounding the books. So I want to explore three things on each book: why people don't finish it, what the book is actually about, and why it's meaningful. Okay? The first book here we have on our five books is 1984. Now, 1984 is a classic. Everyone has heard of it. Many people read it in high school or were forced to try to read it in high school. I think it has a reputation for being depressing. I think that's one of the reasons why people don't read this book. I think another reason people don't read this book is because it's so often scheduled as something that you have to read in school. And because of that, people associate it with a boring book or a book that, you have to read. And nobody likes to read a book that they're forced to read. One of the best ways to get somebody to not enjoy a fantastic work of literature is to tell them that they're going to have a test on it at the end of the month or the end of the semester, especially when those people are 14, 15, 16 years old and they're just in that early phase where, becoming a literature lover is so possible. It's at that very time that we so often stamp it out, unfortunately, with the way that we approach reading 1984. Now, 1984 is a beautiful book. It's a very important book. It explores truth and propaganda. It explores the fragility of freedom. And it explores basically a dystopian society that is much like some of the more negative elements of the modern world. Part of the reason why it's so classic and it's read today is because there's a lot of allusions and a lot of foreshadowing to the world that we live in today with the inability of the freedom of the individual. It's one of the clearest explorations in literature of how thought control can come through the control of language, the control of individuals' ability to say what they think, doublethink, newspeak. A lot of words that come from 1984 are still used today. And so this book has an immense influence, and yet so many people know it, a lot of people buy it, and much fewer people actually read it. 1984, absolutely a book worth reading. Okay. The second one here, The Great Gatsby. Now, The Great Gatsby is another book that is often recommended in high school a lot of times. It's another book that I think a lot of people know as a classic because they've been kind of forced to read it in that sense, and because it's so often assigned, I think people again, same as in 1984, they associate this with a reading for school type book, and nobody likes those. They want to read books that they read for fun, want to read books that they choose to read. Another thing with The Great Gatsby, I think, is a lot of people assume this is just a book about affluence and parties and all sorts of shenanigans. And people don't really know what The Great Gatsby is about. All they know is maybe the movie, some visuals they've seen from it. And I think because of that association, people think of it as just this kind of old, boring book. But the truth is, The Great Gatsby is riveting. The reason you should read this book is because it's one of the most beautifully written books ever written. F. Scott Fitzgerald is a magnificent writer. This is his one true, it's his magnus opum, and it's his one true masterpiece. He's written other books, and they're good. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to ruffle any feathers here, but The Great Gatsby is far and away his most substantial work of literature. Absolutely worth reading. It explores things like longing, the loss of a relationship, and how one can, that sense of desiring something that you can't have anymore, something from the past can be corrosive to a human soul. But really, more than anything, this book is about a green light in the distance. It's about the American dream, but through a critical lens. Now, there are a few books that explore, you know, the kind of cynical side of the American dream, but The Great Gatsby is perhaps the great novel that really explores why some of the flaws in the theory of the American dream. Um, I wouldn't say that it's definitive. I wouldn't say that it proves the American dream wrong or anything like that. I would just say it's an absolute necessity to read this book if you really want to understand what that means, what it means in the modern world. To have a dream that you could build anything, that you could be successful, that you can have anything you want. That wasn't the norm in human history. But nowadays, that is something many people believe. That is because of the American dream. The Great Gatsby explores some of the not so silver linings of that dream and how that affects the life of Jay Gatsby. Um, it's a fantastic novel. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to say anything, but this is absolutely one that you should read. And unfortunately, because of how it's recommended, a lot of people don't think it's great. It's beautifully written. You will love it. It's very easy to read. I'd highly recommend The Great Gatsby. Third book here is The Odyssey. Now, this one is really interesting. Ancient literature, I think, a lot of times feels very intimidating. People feel that because this book is so old, because it was written in a different language thousands of years ago, kind of an unfamiliar style. It's not really a novel, right? It's written in a different way. Some of those things can feel intimidating for the same reason people might feel intimidated by reading Shakespeare or intimidated by reading great poems like Milton or Dante. I think that the Odyssey depends on the translation that you get. It's not as intimidating as people think. The Odyssey and the Iliad are the two major works that are attributed to Homer. And of the two, I think that the more essential reading is the Odyssey, but perhaps an easier first reading is the Iliad. Both of them are absolutely worth reading. If you're interested in adventures, monsters, the whole kind of classic arc of going on this amazing adventure to come home, that is the OG for that. Lord of the Rings is another great novel that kind of explores that. If you love Lord of the Rings, if you love that kind of adventure, The Odyssey would be a great novel. I think I think that at its heart, it is really just a story about the journey home. That's really the key here. That's what the most important part of the story is the journey. It's not about all the monsters. It's not about all the different events that happen along the way, although those are interesting. The most important thing is it's the hero's journey. It's really the classic example of the hero's journey. For that reason, I think the Odyssey is worth reading. I think the Odyssey is a little bit more challenging than the first two books, but I don't think that it is something that you should sleep on simply because of its being an old book, being kind of a feeling a little more intimidating. It's not it's not like reading War and Peace, although War and Peace is eminently readable as well, just so long. It's not like reading Ulysses, although Ulysses is based on it in an interesting way, where it's very difficult and very literary. The Odyssey is something you can read, um, but it's definitely a work of literature that a lot of people are fearful to approach because of some of these reasons that we talked about. So, Odyssey, another one I'd recommend. Okay. Next up, we have Frankenstein. Now, Frankenstein, a lot of people think this is just a classic horror story. This is a book about a monster. Um, couldn't be further from the truth. Frankenstein is a classic novel, a big one that people, I think, one of the reasons people don't read it, I mean, partly because of that misunderstanding of what it's about. Another one, it's so popular in the modern world. People know Frankenstein from movies and from Halloween and from all sorts of, different areas. People feel they're already familiar with it. Why read Frankenstein? I already know the story. It's some guy in a laboratory. He creates a monster and he tells his, assistant to shock it to life and ha ha ha, maniacal laugh. And then the monster comes to life and he says, I have created life. That's not what happens. It's not at all. It's very far from what happens in the story of Frankenstein. Sometimes with classics, we actually think we know the story, and so we don't read it. There are some novels that are close to the movies or to our common societal understanding of what they are, but with great classics, that's usually not the case. And this is absolutely what happens in Frankenstein. You think you know the story, and it's totally different. The story is not about, a man creating a monster and being excited by it. I mean, Victor Frankenstein is absolutely terrified by the monster he creates. Also, the monster is not named Frankenstein. The man who created the monster's name is Frankenstein, right? So we think we know these stories, but do we really? Frankenstein, absolutely. It's a wonderful book about, hubris and the responsibility that is incumbent upon a creator and how, humanity has more responsibilities as it creates more and more with its technological prowess, as it gets better at creating. It's also a book about loneliness and a book about what happens when something is created and it's not given purpose or meaning or direction, and how that is really the tragedy and really what can lead to there being a monster. It's one of those, classic books too, because this is perhaps the first science fiction novel. Um, and in the modern world, very interesting questions about AI, super connected to that as well. Final one, The Catcher in the Rye. So The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. This is one, there's a number of reasons why I think people sleep on The Catcher in the Rye. The first one is probably Holden's voice. His narrative voice is a little bit unique. I love it as an author as well. It's deeply influenced my approach. I think a lot of coming of age or Bildungsroman writers really look at The Catcher in the Rye as a deep influence. So if you like, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, the moviegoer, um, the The Fault in Our Stars, those kind of books, very influenced by The Catcher in the Rye. The Catcher in the Rye, another reason I think that people don't or often buy this book but don't read it is that The Catcher in the Rye is also recommended so often. For school, you're supposed to read it. It's another book that's banned quite a bit too, so maybe that would actually be a reason people would want to read it because that tends to work in the other direction. But The Catcher in the Rye is is a book that it's hard to know exactly what the narrative voice is really what it's about. So if you're looking for a book that has a big plot that seems to be moving, that can be a reason why Catcher in the Rye, people don't love reading it because they feel like, okay, where's the plot? What's going on? But I promise you, once you get into it, it really reveals a lot. It's a really amazing book about, at the end of adolescence, fear of growing up, that kind of weird moment in between the two, right? Where you're not still a child, you're not an adult yet, but you're kind of on that journey. And that's really the key, I guess, in Catcher in the Rye. So Catcher in the Rye, another novel that's absolutely worth reading. This book is very much one that you could read quickly. It's not hard, it's not difficult, it can be read quickly, but because of some of these reasons, the strange narrative voice, the unique narrative voice, and again, the recommendation, how this is recommended to us, a lot of people buy this book and don't read it. So, in conclusion, when looking at these five books that people often buy and they don't read, there's a strange thing about great books. They can look intimidating. They could be recommended for reasons that don't really resonate with us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why we didn't read it. It doesn't matter why we bought it years ago and left it on the shelf. I have many books myself that I bought years ago and left on the shelf. And yet, it doesn't change the book's ability to influence you when you do pick it up. Some of the most impactful books that I've ever read in my life have been books that I've bought and then I have waited and I've not read them. And then years later, I saw it on the shelf and I thought, yeah, that's right. I bought that book years ago and I meant to read that. And I read it. And maybe it was just the right timing, or maybe something I was going through in my life that resonated in the book. Sometimes the books that have resonated and stayed most with me have been books that I've had on my shelf for a long time. So if you've bought any of these books and you haven't read it yet, don't feel pressure, don't feel shame. Just know that these are great novels. A lot of people do this, and absolutely books that you should read. I'd love to know if there's anyone out there that's bought other classic books that they meant to read and they haven't read and they haven't started yet, and what those books are. Maybe we can make other videos in the future about other classic books that people buy and don't read. So thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoyed this video here. Everyone who joined me. This again is the beauty of books, and my name is Ben. We're going to be making videos on literature, books, how to read great books, what's the purpose of reading great literature, and how it can influence your life and help you live a deeper and more meaningful life. All right, take care, everyone.